It's not worth it. The work never ends. The work never ends. So don't try to rush and try to finish it, because it's never going to end. It takes so much out of you. It's a profession with a really steep learning curve and not a lot of time to learn all the things. Everything's moving at you. Things are being thrown at you. It's very fast paced, and it can be really hard to last in this field. So first, before we talk about anything, if you're still at that stage where you're trying to find a position for next year, let's talk about that, okay? So I think you'll have a higher chance of success of lasting in this field if you can find the right fit for you, okay? You really want to be picky when you're picking schools, and picky with your boss, right? When you go to an interview, yes, think about it as in the administrator, the principal, whoever you're interviewing with is interviewing you to see if they like you, but also go into it with the mindset of interviewing them and seeing if you like them, and see if it's a place where you can last and thrive and be happy. Ask about things like discipline, like what's the school-wide discipline policy, what kind of culture there is amongst the staff. You also want to know what the expectations are of the job, like what exactly is your role? Are there any extras that you're going to be required to do or that are expected of you? Make sure you really get that clear in the interview, and also really research the school and see, what are their extracurricular activities, what are they good in, etc. And I think that will also lead to more questions for you to ask once you know more about the school. Instead of just asking general questions, you can ask more specific questions. And not only is this, I think, impressive, the principal will see that you really care and you research the school, and that you have that kind of work ethic, but it will also help you figure out if this is a good fit, if this is the place that you want to be in. And yes, interview the boss. Is this boss going to be a good boss? Are they going to give you enough support? How do they handle when there's a conflict between teachers and students, or teachers and parents? Just how do they maneuver those situations? You want to figure that out. And hopefully those kinds of situations won't come up very often, but they do come up. So you want to make sure that you have a boss that's going to have your back when they do come up. Also, look at the turnover rate. See if you can research that. Ask the principal, well, the person that I'm replacing, can I ask why they left? Often that will give you clues, or even just how they respond can give you some clues about the culture of the faculty there, how the staff and the boss interact with each other. I think that's really important. I've been blessed and have had the great privilege to work with amazing principals and bosses that treated me like a person, and it was just so great. I remember one time when I first started at this last school that I was in, and I had just completely overslept. I was overworking, and we'll talk about that later in the video. And I rushed in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I overslept and I missed the meeting. And she's like, oh, good. That's so good. You slept and you got your rest. And she was genuine. Like, she was really sincere. And I was just so shocked, like, oh my gosh, am I going to be fired tomorrow? No, whereas in the school I was at previously, it would have been, I'm going to write you up. You're going home with a demerit, kind of thing, and you're treated as a number. But yeah, you really want to find a caring, supportive administrator, but at the same time, also an administrator that has their stuff together, that just, that will be supportive of you, but can really also support you when it comes to conflicts you may have in the classroom, that will follow through on consequences, etc., and support you in that. Not just like, oh, everything will work itself out, it'll be okay kind of admin. Unfortunately, sometimes they're there because they are so busy. There's so much that they do. I can't say that I know exactly what admins go through, but just from having been in different schools, I know that some people do it a little better than others. Okay, so now let's talk about self-care. I know a lot of the teachers I've met, most of the teachers I've met tend to be a particular type of people. They tend to be overachieving, idealistic, and big-hearted. And these type of people tend to just really run themselves ragged and work themselves to the ground. So let's talk about that. Especially as a new teacher, this was just a lesson I learned the hard way. I would wake up really early in the morning. I get into the building by 6, and sometimes I'm working almost nonstop until 10 p.m. my first couple of years, the first 4 years of my teaching. And I mean, not all the time, there would be seasons, but it was more of the norm rather than the exception. And I was blessed, actually, again, to have a mentor teacher who saw this and just kind of made me aware of it and said, it's not worth it. The work never ends. The work never ends. So don't try to rush and try to finish it, because it's never going to end. It's better for you to just have boundaries of your time and say, this is my set time of when I'm going to end. This is my set time of when I'm going to begin, and make it reasonable. Don't make it from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's not okay, because then you'll just end up eating a box of Cheez-Its for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And not like a box for the day. I mean like a box for each meal. So yeah, you want to prioritize also your life just as a person outside of teaching. Have some exercise, good diet, spend time with family, work on those relationships, work on recreation. There is a difference between amusement and recreation. Teacher me, or teacher you, think about the root words and the prefixes there. But yes, I also understand when there will be nights when you're just going to want to sit on the couch and veg out on Netflix, and that's fine. Just don't make it your norm. So take care of yourself, and I'll have more. There's so much to say on this, but just take care of yourself. Oh, another thing that makes the self-care possible, because you don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to come to school at this time and leave at this time, but then you leave and you're sick to your stomach thinking about all the work that's waiting for you for the next day. So get efficient, really work on your productivity and your organization. An organized classroom is a productive classroom. I know there are people that say, oh, well, I'm just like a mess. I'm a messy genius or whatever, and I know which pile things are in. That's okay. Yes, but also know that just wastes so much time when you're looking for things in your piles. And these kids are coming in, you're sharing that space with the kids, and they see piles and they see mess and it impacts the mood the whole day. We're not in that profession where we can be like, oh, creative genius. See that pile there, and having multiple piles, and kids are coming in, the piles and the mess just communicate this message of, I don't have my stuff together. So don't do that. But anyway, that's a tangent. Really, the most important reason of why you want to be organized is to increase your productivity and efficiency while you're in school and during your prep, so that you can go home at a decent time and not be thinking about it, not be thinking about like, oh my gosh, these are the things that I need to do. Have a system where you have lists and you really prioritize the things that must be done for the next day. And hopefully you could be at least 2 or 3 days ahead, maybe even a week. Another way to really save time and make sure that you're leaving at a decent hour and not being anxious about it is to use the existing curriculum. So remember when I said you're an overachiever? I know you are, and I know you want to make those awesome lessons, those fun, amazing lessons, or look for one on the internet, right? Like maybe spend a couple of hours finding just the perfect lesson. Don't do it. I mean, if you find somehow that you've become so efficient that you're at least weeks ahead of your classes and in your planning, sure, go for it. But don't make it the norm, and don't put that expectation on yourself. Just use the existing curriculum. I have some videos on how to make the textbook engaging, so maybe look at that. But there are great ways to make the existing curriculum fun in a really that's really practical and easy and quick. And you know, if you're gonna spend time looking for things, make it that. And if you just have a lot of days where it's just going with the curriculum, that's okay. And you know, a lot of these, they've gotten better. You will have years to get there. Okay, so I'm not saying don't pursue it at all. It's just your first year, your first couple of years, it's not the priority. So let's talk about classroom management. You knew it was coming. Yes, yes, yes. It's one of the top priorities you have. You can know all the things in the world or have just the most amazing lessons, but you're not going to be able to impart that to your students without a good classroom management system. So make sure you really start working on it and making it a priority. Now, don't be so hard on yourself if it's not perfect, because here's a little secret. It's one of those things where it's never perfect and it can always improve, and that's okay, right? But first of all, actually, let me back up. We need to kind of get onto the same page of what classroom management is and what a well-managed classroom looks like. It doesn't necessarily just mean, oh, it's so quiet, you can hear a pin drop. That's not what that classroom management means. I think what it means, the most important thing, is that learning can happen, right? Or learning is happening. It's happening all the time. And it's planned learning as well as non-planned learning. You're able to get through your lesson smoothly, like you're able to tell them what you want to tell them, that they hear you and they understand you, and that they're engaged, they're on task. And it might be loud, but all the students are engaged and on task. I think that should be your priority when managing your classroom. And are there times when it's gonna have to be quiet? Yes, most definitely, especially when you're talking and just giving directions. But there needs to be systems in place in that. And I just don't want you to be so hard on yourself when you have the loud classroom. It's okay, especially when the kids are engaged and excited. When they're excited and they're engaged about what you're doing, they're gonna be loud. And that's the time when, it's great because they're working, when they're working, not when you're talking. Don't talk when they're talking. Anyway, so a big thing that I found that's been consistently true with classroom management, and again, there are many methods, different ways you can do this, and you want to tailor fit it to the students in your class. You want to look at that. But what I found that's been consistent across the many grades I've taught and the different demographics, you know, from urban to suburban, is proximity and presence. What does that even mean, right? Just be close, be present to your students. Don't be stuck behind a desk grading papers or lesson planning, trying to catch up. Yes, those things are important, but when you have kids in front of you, be present to them. Try as much as you can to greet the kids at the door. If you can't, like I wasn't always able to do that because there's such little time between passing periods sometimes. But one of our routines, as they come in, there's a bell ringer or a do now, and it's an activity where they don't need my instructions. They just know to come in. Actually, before they even get started on the do now, they take out their planners for me to sign and to collect their homework if there was homework. And that way, first with the homework, there's more accountability. I think the quality drastically increased when I collected it. Took the minute it took to just collect it by hand individually, where they hand it to me. And it's also a way to just interact with them individually, even if it's just a couple of seconds. And I think that makes a big difference. They know that you're there, you remember them. They're not just a number. You have some sort of relationship you can build over time when you're doing this every day, you know. I think that's what it means for presence. That's a concrete example. Circulate the room as much as possible. Have routines in place where you're constantly doing that, where the plan is for you to do that. And I think that helps a lot. Now, the rest of the things I'm going to talk about in the video, I think in terms of importance can go however way. I think it just depends on you as a person, where you think there's more areas for growth. And again, these are just priorities. They're not intended for you to perfect them like in your first couple of years. No, I'm just saying, you know, with all the things coming at you, you want to make sure you're focusing on just a limited amount of things and putting your effort into those things the most. Okay, so let's talk about your teaching. That, I think that's one of the next things. It's a top thing that you do want to worry about, is just you as a teacher, trying to figure out who you are as a teacher and then gaining that confidence. And for me, it took me a while because I'd see other teachers and see like, wow, they are making that work. I'm gonna try that. And I try it in the classroom and it completely flops because it's not me. It's not true to who I am. So you want to do that for you, just kind of figuring out who are you and what teaching style will work for you, and teaching strategies that work for you, because there are so many, right? There's so many. You just go on the internet and they say, teach this way, teach that way, teach this way. And like, really, it's just you, like individually as a teacher, what's gonna make it work for you. It has to be a method that you're comfortable with and that jives well with your personality. And again, also with the students in front of you. But you have to prioritize first what you can do for you. Always, always, always self-reflect and ask yourself what's making you tick in the classroom, you know, and what motivates you, and just always reflect on that. I think it will give you juice for the rest of the journey, but also help you improve your teaching and figure out who you are as a teacher. Another big priority is relationships. Make sure you're building positive relationships and a positive classroom community. And before I dive into this, I just want to remind you though that you are a teacher, okay? And being a teacher is hero enough. You don't have to be the principal, the counselor, their therapist, their parole officer, their mom, or their dad. You're not those people. And you don't want to stretch yourself so much that you just become inefficient and not good at anything. You're there to be their teacher, and that is enough. That is great. That is good. Okay, there's already enough to being a teacher and having that teacher-student relationship, not friend-student relationship. Teacher-student relationship. You have to establish first that there's a little bit of a barrier, right, between you and the student. You have to establish your authority. And it's important because if a problem were to ever come up in the classroom, the kids need to know and trust that you can handle it, right? They need to be able to trust you to handle it, to keep them safe and to keep them learning. If they don't trust you to do that, they're going to figure out ways to do it themselves. And then your classroom's not going to be managed, okay? And it's not going to be a positive relationship. So don't try to be their friend first. You are their teacher first, and establish that relationship where they can trust you and they're friendly with you. But again, you are not their peer. It's not equal. You want to keep your leverage and control of the classroom because you are responsible for their learning and for their safety. I think it's just a more positive relationship if they understand who you are and there's not confusion of, is Miss So-and or Mr. So-and-so my friend or my teacher? Like, you know, I know this is also a style thing where you're like, oh, I can't not smile, or I can't be like a hammer and just militaristic. It doesn't have to be like that. That's not what that means. It's about having professional boundaries and just you can be nice. You can be friends with the students. Just remember that you're their teacher first. With relationships, also remember that it takes time. Don't rush it, okay? The goal is for you to be there for at least that whole year and maybe more in these kids' lives. And just the small things every day, it's all about consistency. It doesn't have to be extravagant, big things. Don't rush it. And don't take it personally if they just don't like you. That's okay. The important thing is that you have a positive working relationship and that you like them, or actually don't pressure yourself into that you care about them. You don't have to like them, but you have to care about them and their learning and their safety. You have to care, and that has to be sincere. And that's what you should focus on, okay? And just caring for the whole classroom as a whole, not just the one person, and just always having that in mind. So build those relationships. Another really important relationship you should also build is with a trusted mentor. If the school doesn't provide one for you, try to find one in your building that you can just kind of go to for advice, or just see them, just their professionalism or how they handle kids, parents, other teachers in the building. This job can be so isolating, and you're in the classroom. Yes, you're with people, you're with little people. And sometimes there could be days where you won't see another adult, just depending on your life situation. So make sure you have adult friends and adult teacher friends that can empathize, and if possible, yes, a mentor as much as possible. I have learned so much from mentor teachers and mentors, and I wouldn't have lasted or wouldn't love teaching as much as I do if it weren't for my mentors. So that's a very important relationship to build. Finally, you want to gradually master your content, whatever you're teaching. So for middle school, when I first started teaching history, it was kind of like, whoa. I mean, I took my undergraduate, I majored in history, and it was weird because at that school, we could pick certain concentrations, and I didn't really concentrate on US history. It was more of like modern world, some Middle East, South African history, just kind of all over the place a little bit. But I mean, some US history, but it was, again, later US history. And in middle school, you're teaching, it's mostly early US history. So I really had to catch up. And I noticed how different my lessons went when it came to something I knew about versus something I didn't really know about and relied on the textbook for. And again, yes, it's okay to do that. Like, you don't have time to be researching things. But what I'm saying is at least read the textbook, or read whatever thing you're going to want them to read, whatever you're teaching on, to the students. I think it will increase your confidence, and it will help you answer their questions, but also anticipate ways to engage them, or anticipate problems that you're going to have, or questions they're going to have in the classroom. It's just important to master your content. You can't teach something you don't know. So I know it's a lot, and being you the way you are, overachieving, you might come down on yourself and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much I need to know, and I just have to get it all done. You don't. Okay, again, it's a work in progress. If this is too much, just pick like the top two. And I think that is really self-care and classroom management, organization. Like that's what's gonna help you last. The other things, work on them as much as you can. But if you really, really can't prioritize, I would say it boils down to those 2 or 3 things. And number 1, self-care. You got to protect your mental space and your heart, your health, everything to last. You can try your best to be the perfect teacher and then run yourself ragged the first couple of years, and then what? We would have lost another great teacher if you decide to leave, or just are miserable and you find that you were not the person that you like anymore. don't get to that space. Just really protect your mental space. Don't feel guilty for not staying late, for not doing extra. Don't, because those things are what's going to kill it for you in the long run anyway. And you being in your best self, like in your best state, is a gift to the students. It's the best gift you can give to the students, is you in top form. So take care of yourself. Yeah. So if it's a lot, at least focus on that, okay? And it's not gonna be perfect. Don't pressure yourself on perfect. Work on the mindset. Work on the mindset that it doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be a hero, because being a teacher is hero enough. Thank you for teaching. And if this has been helpful to you, I always forget to say this. If this has been helpful to you, please press the like button. Click the like button, and hopefully that will help this, I have been told, to get this video to get to other people that might need it. So thank you so much for sticking around. I will see you in the next video.